Terrific. Well, thanks. Of course, I echo the mayor's appreciation and acknowledgement for those who are joining us for everything that you do. And I so appreciate the mayor for the excellent leadership that he has provided, for everything that has been happening in Milwaukee to really, of course, this is already a city that was on the map, but on the map in the best way through many of the choices and initiatives that he has led. And we seek to be a partner to America's great cities and America's great mayors. I often reflect that the job of a mayor has only become more demanding and more difficult since I proudly wore that title. But it would have been nice back when I was mayor if there was $1 trillion infrastructure bill coming out of the administration. So hopefully you feel that wind at your back there. Thank you, Director Carter, for welcoming us to the port and for your excellent work and your trailblazing example. We are proud to be with you and so impressed by what your staff are doing. I also want to thank the people of Milwaukee for their understanding when we stole your great port director. We're so proud to have Adam Tyndall-Schlick leading the GLS, which is of importance, of course, to the entire American economy, as well as in particular to America's Great Lakes ports, and he's laser focused on that. Thank you, Secretary Romansky. We had an excellent conversation earlier with some of the ag growers, businesses, and exporters here. I appreciate all that you're doing. We should compare notes on consumer protection a little bit later too, since that's a favorite subject of mine. And really enjoyed my conversation with the governor preparing for this trip, who I'll see soon. And with that, I didn't miss anybody. I just want to thank everybody here for the warm welcome and say how proud we are to be here. These last few weeks, we've been highlighting a lot of the construction going on in the infrastructure moment that we live in, thanks to the President's Investing in America initiative. So I've had a lot of dust on my shoes, but this is the first time that I've had grain dust on my jacket. It feels pretty good. And of course, it's personally rewarding to be back here as well. I am very much a creature of the Great Lakes. I grew up in northern Indiana. They're on the business end of the lake effect. I drilled at Great Lakes in Fort Sheridan. Chicago is the city that brought me and my husband together, and I should mention that he went to school at Eau Claire and is very nostalgic about his days living and working in Milwaukee. And now we live in northern Michigan, where he grew up. So anything that affects the Great Lakes is close to my heart. And that's part of why we wanted to make sure we were out here visiting the extraordinary ports. And one thing I learned over the years, growing up in the Midwest, serving as mayor, and certainly now as secretary, is how much the life and the economy of the Midwest and the Great Lakes region has to do with the ability to move things. The railroads that move our supplies and manufactured goods, the roads that link this part of the country to the east and the rest of the country, and of course the lakes themselves and the rivers that link into them gave rise to so many of our Midwestern communities, going back to the earliest days of America's recorded history. And then it was on the strength of these waters and their potential that this region became an economic powerhouse for the entire country, an engine of growth, especially for America's manufacturing and agriculture economies, and with that, the rise of the American middle class. The strength of American agriculture, manufacturing, and our middle class continues to be an economic engine and a source of rightful pride in this part of the country. But of course, there is another piece of that story, which is the consequence of decades of decisions that contributed to the squeeze on family farmers, the loss of some of our great manufacturing jobs, and a new vulnerability in that middle class that stood so strong for so long. Those losses and those pressures didn't happen at random or because of an act of God. They happened because through the decades, Washington too often failed to prioritize the well-being of our heartland farmers and our Great Lakes manufacturers. But the Biden-Harris administration arrived with a determination to change all of that. And under the president's leadership, we have made good on that determination. We made good on it with a new industrial policy to bring manufacturing back to our shores, a new labor policy to empower American workers, and of course, a new infrastructure policy that has the federal government putting its money where its mouth is for the first time in a long time. American communities and companies here are growing, innovating, exporting, and the Biden-Harris administration is backing these communities with the support, the policies, the partnership, and importantly, the funding that was needed for so long. And we've done that in partnership with an amazing federal delegation, leaders like Gwen Moore, like Tammy Baldwin, who were with us, believed in this back when the commentators were saying that we'd never get an infrastructure law, certainly not a bipartisan one. They didn't give up, the president didn't give up, neither did we, and now we're here because of it. We are making investments that support good jobs in Milwaukee and across the Midwest, partnering with states and communities to bring out the best in our proud tradition and history with a focus on a better future. And this week I've been seeing so many great examples of that. The new agricultural maritime export facility that opened just last summer is already helping farmers from across the heartland sell their product around the world. Just had a chance to see it for myself, see how farmers will be able to export commodities that are not as well suited for container shipping and upright storage, which was the only option before. And that's why, in partnership with the DeLong Company, the state of Wisconsin, and the city of Milwaukee, the Biden-Harris administration was so proud to award $9 million for phase 2 of this project. That means the chance to expand the capacity by more than 1.3 million bushels a year, so that more American farmers can sell their excellent product to the world through this port. In fact, the ship we have right next to us is loading distillers' dried grains with solubles, a byproduct of ethanol from farmers in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa, on its way to be sold in Northern Europe. Now, I love stories like this because so many Americans, when they think about ports and supply chains, they picture those ocean ports on our coasts where we are importing products from Asia. That's a very important part of our economy. But what we love best is to see opportunities to sell our products to the rest of the world and bring that income to our workers and to our farmers and to our communities right here in America's heartland and right here across the United States. And again, we're seeing success stories like this across the region. Yesterday I was at the Port of Menominee at the base of the UP, where we are helping to reconstruct a crumbling dock wall. We're installing new rail capacity and doing it all through funding in that bipartisan infrastructure law. Last year I was in Monroe, Michigan, where we're using funds from that same Biden-Harris infrastructure package to help the port expand capacity and build an overpass over a freight rail line so that people and goods can move more safely and efficiently. The list goes on with thousands of projects moving forward across the Midwest, like the vitally important new Blatnick Bridge we're building between Superior, Wisconsin and Duluth. And for every bridge with $1 billion project like that, there are hundreds of rural off-system bridges that we're supporting too. These are the kinds of investments that America made in our best moments, should have never stopped making. And we're making them now, not a moment too soon. And I'm so proud of how people across the Great Lakes, often working with generations old infrastructure, have kept the fires lit, have kept these communities going, and now at last we are bringing the support that these communities have long deserved. This administration, as I mentioned, was so proud to have passed and signed the biggest infrastructure package in more than 70 years. And those investments are now helping American farmers and American manufacturing workers thrive, and it's already paying off. No more so-called infrastructure weeks with no results in Washington, and enough of the big factory announcements that never led to anything. Under President Biden and Vice President Harris, the U.S. has created nearly 800,000 manufacturing jobs, a remarkable comeback compared to the manufacturing recession that we experienced under the previous administration. In a couple days, I'll be in Kokomo in Indiana, seeing the new electric vehicle battery factories that are being built there. We're seeing manufacturing jobs coming back to the U.S. at new auto plants in Indiana, Kansas, Michigan, Ohio, and more. This really is the start of a new and better era for America's heartland, and it's not happening by chance. The infrastructure improvements, the supply chain investments, the pro-manufacturing policies of this administration are driving this American renaissance, including our awards earlier this month through the Department of Energy to breathe new life into 11 at-risk or shuttered factories that now see new life and purpose in the EV economy. I'll just make one final observation, which is that while we are drawing inspiration from a proud tradition and history, we're also learning from our past, and we're not going to do things exactly the way we did them last time. For example, we are serious about making sure that industrial growth for the future does not mean the same kind of impact on the environment, including our rivers and lakes, that we've experienced in the past. This time we are demonstrating how job growth need not come at the expense of environmental responsibility, nor vice versa. The clean energy and manufacturing jobs we're supporting here have shattered the old false framework of jobs versus environment and proven that we can do things here in the early 21st century that will do right by those among us, like my own kids, who will go on to experience the 22nd century. And here too, many of the best examples come from the Great Lakes in the Midwest. We were at the Port of Manitowoc yesterday, where we're helping to convert the Badger, the last coal-powered freight and passenger ferry in the entire U.S., to a cleaner way of running. And across the country, we are working on opportunities that are going to make a difference. This administration, our partners, investing $450 million to clean up about 2 million cubic yards of contaminated settlement from the Milwaukee estuary area of concern that will make communities here healthier and help to revitalize the local waterfront economy. So, farmers across the Midwest are making a good living growing crops for ethanol and biofuels, byproducts of which can now be exported around the world through this very port, while American manufacturing workers are making a good living building EVs and their components around the Great Lakes instead of in places like Guangzhou in China. I know that I've covered a lot of ground, so I'll just sum it up with one sentence. This is what America's infrastructure, agriculture, and manufacturing comeback looks like. We are so proud that fixing bridges, ports, highways, railroads, and more is contributing to better income for American farmers and manufacturing workers, lower costs for American families, and cleaner air and water for our children. And of course, the work is not done. We are still in the first half of America's infrastructure decade, and we are reversing literally decades of underinvestment, including in the Midwest, but we are well underway. Dollars are moving, dirt is flying, and project by project, community by community, we are laying groundwork for a great future. I'm proud to be your partner in building that future. So thank you for welcoming us here to Milwaukee. We're thrilled to be here.